Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which an individual seeks to make another person doubt their own perceptions, memories, and reality. The term gaslighting originates from a 1938 play and a subsequent 1944 film, both titled Gaslight. In the story, a husband attempts to drive his wife insane by dimming the gaslights in their home and then insisting that they are not getting dimmer, despite her observations to the contrary. Gaslighting is a manipulative tactic that is often used to gain control and power over someone. It can be emotionally and psychologically damaging. Here are some key characteristics and examples of gaslighting. 1. Denial of reality is a key component of gaslighting, a form of psychological manipulation in which one person seeks to make another doubt their own perceptions, memories, and reality. In the context of gaslighting, the denial of reality involves the gaslighter consistently rejecting the victim's experiences and observations. Invalidation of perceptions. The gaslighter invalidates or dismisses the victim's perceptions and experiences. For example, if the victim says, "I saw you at the party last night," the gaslighter might respond with, "You must be mistaken. I wasn't at any party." Challenging memory. The gaslighter challenges the victim's memory by suggesting that their recollection of events is unreliable. For instance, the victim might say, "You promised to help me with the project," and the gaslighter could counter with, "I never said that. You must be confused." Minimizing feelings. Gaslighters often minimize or downplay the victim's feelings and emotional reactions. If the victim expresses hurt or anger, the gaslighter may respond with statements like, "You're overreacting," or "You're too sensitive." Selective memory. The gaslighter may employ selective memory, acknowledging only the aspects of an event that suit their agenda, while ignoring or denying others. This can further distort the victim's perception of reality. Gaslighter as the authority. In gaslighting, the gaslighter often positions themselves as the authority on reality. They present themselves as the one who knows what is true, and assert that the victim is the one who is mistaken or delusional. The purpose of this denial of reality is to erode the victim's self-esteem, self-confidence, and trust in their own perceptions. Over time, the victim may begin to doubt their memory and judgment, becoming more dependent on the gaslighter for validation and reassurance. 2. Shifting blame. Involves the gaslighter deflecting responsibility for their actions or behaviors onto the victim or others. Refusing accountability. The gaslighter refuses to take responsibility for their actions, words, or decisions. Instead, they attempt to convince the victim that the blame lies elsewhere. Accusing the victim. The gaslighter often accuses the victim of causing or provoking the gaslighter's behavior. For example, if the gaslighter has been verbally abusive, they might say, "You made me act that way with your behavior," creating false equivalencies. Gaslighters may create false equivalencies by comparing their actions to unrelated or less significant actions of the victim. This is done to diminish their own responsibility and magnify the victim's perceived wrongdoing. Blaming external factors. Gaslighters frequently blame external factors or circumstances for their behavior. For instance, they might claim that stress, work, or other people made them act a certain way. Playing the victim. Gaslighters can flip the script by portraying themselves as victims who are unfairly accused, shifting the blame to the victim or others who challenge their actions. The purpose of shifting blame in gaslighting is to absolve the gaslighter of responsibility and make the victim feel guilty, responsible, or confused. This can lead to the victim second-guessing their own actions and feeling complicit in the gaslighter's behaviors. 3. Withholding information involves the gaslighter deliberately not sharing or distorting information to create confusion or doubt in the victim. Selective omission. The gaslighter selectively withholds or omits information that is relevant to a situation. They may provide only partial information, leaving out crucial details that would provide a more accurate understanding. Distorting facts. When questioned or confronted, the gaslighter may distort or misrepresent facts and events, giving a version of events that is inconsistent with the truth. Denying previous statements. Gaslighters may deny having said or done things that they clearly did. When confronted with evidence, they may dismiss it as false or irrelevant, providing false information. Gaslighters may provide false or misleading information to create a false narrative. This can include inventing stories, falsely attributing actions to others, or making baseless claims. Changing the story. When questioned about their actions, the gaslighter may frequently change their version of events, making it difficult for the victim to discern the truth. Gaslighter as the source of truth. The gaslighter often positions themselves as the sole source of reliable information and asserts that the victim's perceptions or information are incorrect or untrustworthy. The purpose of withholding information in gaslighting is to create a sense of confusion, doubt, and dependence in the victim. By controlling the information flow and distorting the truth, the gaslighter aims to undermine the victim's ability to trust their own judgment and reality. 4. Countering evidence involves the gaslighter denying or dismissing any evidence that contradicts their version of events. Denying reality. The gaslighter consistently denies the reality of the victim's experiences and observations. Even when presented with concrete evidence, they might say, "That never happened, you're imagining things," or "You're making it up." Diminishing proof. The gaslighter downplays any proof or evidence that challenges their narrative. They may suggest that the evidence is unimportant, insignificant, or inconclusive, attempting to undermine the victim's confidence in their own judgment. Questioning validity. Gaslighters may question the validity of the evidence, suggesting it's forged, inaccurate, or irrelevant. They might assert that the victim has misunderstood or misinterpreted the evidence. Deflecting responsibility. Gaslighters often shift the focus away from the evidence and back onto the victim. They may accuse the victim of being overly suspicious, paranoid, or dishonest. Challenging memory. The gaslighter might challenge the victim's memory of events, suggesting that they are mistaken or forgetful, even when the evidence directly contradicts their assertions. The purpose of countering evidence in gaslighting is to undermine the victim's confidence in their own perception of reality. By denying or dismissing evidence, the gaslighter attempts to make the victim doubt their own experiences and feel as though they are unreliable or delusional. 5. Projection involves the gaslighter attributing their own thoughts, feelings, or behaviors to the victim. Transferring personal traits. The gaslighter transfers their own negative traits, thoughts, or feelings onto the victim. For example, if the gaslighter is dishonest, they may accuse the victim of being untrustworthy. Blaming the victim. The gaslighter blames the victim for the very actions or emotions they themselves are engaging in. For instance, if the gaslighter is being controlling, they may accuse the victim of being overly controlling. Distorting reality. By projecting their own issues onto the victim, the gaslighter distorts the victim's sense of reality. The victim may question their own behavior and emotions as a result, creating confusion. projection can create confusion for the victim, as they are left wondering if they are indeed the one at fault, or if they are misinterpreting the gaslighter's actions. Shifting responsibility. The gaslighter uses projection to shift responsibility away from themselves. By attributing negative qualities to the victim, they avoid accountability for their own actions, undermining self-confidence. Projecting personal flaws onto the victim can erode the victim's self-confidence and self-esteem, as they begin to believe they possess these negative traits. Diminishing the victim. Projection serves to diminish the victim's credibility and character. They may feel defensive, guilty, or confused when confronted with these accusations. The purpose of projection in gaslighting is to manipulate the victim into doubting their own character and actions, while the gaslighter avoids taking responsibility for their own behavior. This tactic can lead to self-doubt and confusion, making the victim more susceptible to manipulation. 6. Isolating the victim. Involves the gaslighter actively working to cut the victim off from sources of support, validation, or independent perspectives. Reducing social contact. The gaslighter may try to limit the victim's interactions with friends, family, or anyone who could provide emotional support or an alternative perspective. Creating distrust. The gaslighter may plant seeds of doubt about the intentions and trustworthiness of the victim's social connections. This can lead the victim to feel that they cannot trust anyone but the gaslighter. Promoting dependence. Gaslighters often attempt to make the victim emotionally or financially dependent on them, ensuring that the victim relies solely on the gaslighter for support and validation. Gaslighter as the only source of truth. The gaslighter positions themselves as the sole source of truth and reality, making the victim believe that their perspective is the only valid one. Discouraging independent thinking. The gaslighter may criticize or belittle the victim's ability to think independently, making them increasingly reliant on the gaslighter for guidance. Isolation from external validation. The gaslighter may create situations or conditions that prevent the victim from seeking validation or support outside the relationship. The purpose of isolating the victim in gaslighting is to make the victim more dependent on the gaslighter, cutting off any potential sources of validation, insight, or support that could challenge the gaslighter's manipulative tactics. This isolation can intensify the victim's vulnerability and make it more difficult for them to recognize the manipulation. It's important to recognize gaslighting behavior and seek support or assistance if you suspect you are being manipulated in this way. In Buddhism and many ethical systems, fostering self-awareness, self-esteem, and compassion for oneself and others is encouraged, making it important to counteract harmful tactics like gaslighting.